Welcome back to Undisturbed. This is your host, Kyle Dangler. This podcast will be presented by United Media. Today we're going to have on Garrett Whitlock, one of the Yankees farm system right-handed pitchers. He was one of the top 30 prospects going into 2019 in the Yankees farm system. Unfortunately, he had problems with his arm and tore some ligaments and whatnot. In terms of the elbow, had Tommy John surgery this season. Unfortunately, wasn't able to get on the rubber just because of that. And because of no season, get on the phone with him now, talk to him about baseball, Yankees system, and everything in between.
Hey, Kyle.
What's going on, Garrett?
Not much. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Doing good.
Yeah. So if you're ready to get into it, we could just get talking.
Yep. Sounds good.
For you, I wanted to ask you, with everything going on this year, I mean, obviously, first and foremost is your health on and off the field. How is it going in terms of staying in shape, getting a routine down, and getting your arm back up to speed?
So far, everything is going great. I'm working with Kevin Wilk, Champion Sports Medicine. He's doing everything to help me keep my arm in shape and everything on that front. And then I'm working with Kyle Tinsley at Tinsley Performance down in Pelham, and he's doing everything to get my body in shape for the upcoming season. So, with those two working together and everything, it's going really good.
Now, in terms of this season, obviously not playing, but if there was a season, do you think you would have been pitching at some point and ready at some point to get back on the field if there was a minor league season?
I definitely feel that way now for sure. My body feels ready and my arm feels ready. And, so, I definitely was hoping to be able to contribute this year to whichever team I was on. And, so I was definitely ready to get back after it.
In terms of, the elbow injury and everything, that's obviously a longer time to come back from. What month, what day, was there a point in time where you felt like you were 100%, if you are 100% now, but when did you feel, just back in a rhythm and back to normally pitching, just in terms of how you felt on the mound and just going into it, it just felt like it was pre-injury?
I definitely feel better than I did before injury now. But, I still haven't gotten that, I've only been able to simulate game situations. So, I feel like to me it'll be back and, feeling like it's like, wow, I'm back doing this again once I step in between the lines and, facing a game environment and everything like that. That'll be when it's like, all right, sweet, I'm back.
For you too, a lot of guys who go through those sort of injuries, even the guys that we've talked to on the podcast, going through that, it's definitely going to take a mental toll on you, being away from the team and whatnot. But this season was kind of a blessing in disguise for you, not having that, just in terms of kind of, obviously you never want that injury to happen to you, but it hit at kind of the right point with everything that's happening. What has been kind of one or two things that you've taken away from the injury that before, the injury you wouldn't have thought of, or you maybe just took for granted?
And I think that's what I would exactly say is took for granted. With the elbow injury and everything, I told Kevin Reese as soon as I got back down to spring training, I was like, shoot, I don't care if I'm in the GCL, I'm never taking a day of this for granted ever again. Just because, when I was sitting at home and I got to watch the team I was on last year, the Trenton Thunder, win the Eastern League Championship last year, and it was great seeing all those guys win the championship and everything. It was such a weird feeling because I was so happy for them, but at the same time I felt so separated just because I was sitting here at home watching it on my TV rather than being in the dugout or being on the field with those guys that I battle with all year. And so I promised to myself after that injury, I was like, I'm never taking a second of this for granted again. So, whether it be me doing arm care in the spring training complex or whether we're out competing for a championship, I'm not taking a second of it for granted again.
Now, just in terms of that being with the Trenton Thunder, we were actually we're from New Jersey, doing that from here now. Just in terms of being so close to Trenton and whatnot, what is just some of the things outside of the game, just in terms of being in Trenton? I know you were only there for a short time, part of the Thunder organization within the Yankee farm system, making it to that point, your highest level in pro ball. How much of the competition difference was it compared to the GCL, low A, high A, and everything in between? Was it a big jump for you personally, or did you feel prepared and confident going into that?
Well, if compared to the GCL, it is a very big jump. But compared to high and everything, you can definitely tell it's a difference. The hitters definitely have a way better plan of attack, and they're better at hitting your mistakes and everything. And so, it was one of those things where my first year I got brought up to kind of have a cup of coffee, and I had to face the Fisher Cats a couple times in 18. And so, like getting my feet wet, kind of having a pitch against those guys was definitely good for me going into 2019 because I had a little bit of confidence, saying like, hey, I did this a little bit last year. And, I knew that I was like, hey, I'm ready to belong here. I'm ready to, compete at this level and, try and help my team win that championship.
UAB, just in terms of college, obviously Division One, not Power Five conference per se, but definitely a great program to be at. But in terms of not maybe going to the LSUs of the world and the Vanderbilts, going to UAB, did you ever think it was possible to get drafted by an organization like the Yankees? At the end of your senior year of high school, taking everything into consideration, going off to school, was it just kind of a plan to do it for the next 4 years, or did you always see baseball as a potential outlet for a professional career?
I definitely always wanted to, whether I saw it as like a possible fruition. It probably wasn't on the forefront of my mind, but Josh Hopper, who's now at Dallas Baptist, but he was with me at UAB as the pitching coach. I mean, he deserves pretty much all my credit when it comes to the develop between high school and then making it to the Yankees. I would have gone nowhere without him, and he's taught me pretty much everything I know when it comes to baseball, and I still talk to him all the time. And all of my knowledge that comes from pitching, comes from the basis of Josh Hopper. And obviously with being in the minor leagues, I've had great pitching coaches, with Justin Pope and Jose Rosado and Tim Norton. I mean, those three have helped me tremendously as well. But I look back at my college days, and the person I got to thank most for pitching has got to be Josh Hopper.
Obviously, college, just in terms of the season leading up to the draft, didn't go your way. Just in terms of, correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there a few injuries, or was it food poisoning or something?
Yeah, so I had I injured my back. I don't remember exactly when. I think it was down at FIU. I pulled something in my back, and that sidelined me. And then I think, like, right as I was getting ready to return, I got food poisoning the day I was supposed to start that game. And so obviously I tried to get on there and start, and needless to say, I was still a little sick, but we bounced back.
In terms of before asking about the draft process and asking, what made you leave college for the Yankee organization, at what point in college, I'm always curious about this question, talking to guys, even in the pros like Sean Manaea and whatnot, he went to a small university, smaller than yours, of course, but not, Power Five, but just asking the guys when there was a moment when they knew that they could get drafted. When was it for you? Was it freshman, sophomore year? Was it somebody who maybe came up to you and was a scout and said that you have the potential? What was kind of that moment that made it all click for the dream to become a reality?
When I thought it could be a possibility, it was probably my freshman summer when I got the privilege to play for the Chatham Anglers up in Cape Cod. And, just being around all those great guys that I was with up there, and, just when I came back to UAB for that for my next year, being at Scout Day and like talking to all the scouts and everything, I was like, dang, maybe I actually like gave myself a little value being up there. And as the season went on, just talking to scouts more and more, I was like, man, maybe I have a shot.
What did that moment mean for you, just in terms of playing in the Cape Cod League? Sure, obviously there's a lot of talent with the teams you play at UAB, but that's sort of the cream of the crop in terms of the potential in the Cape Cod League. Is that, do you think, was a big turning point, not only for you realizing that it could be a profession, but gaining confidence going back to UAB, which led to the success going into your sophomore year?
It definitely helped me gain confidence, but it was just a great experience in general. I had a wonderful host family up there, and so they made the time up there even better. And then, my teammates were great, and I still talk to a decent amount of my teammates that were on that team, and so it definitely gave me a little bit of confidence, but at the same time, it was just a great experience in general.
Now, going into the draft process, obviously junior year, having that back injury and then having the food poisoning, there was a couple of setbacks just in terms of, I'm sure, where you wanted to be at. But getting drafted by the Yankees in the higher middle rounds, in the teen rounds, what made you decide to leave college, just in terms of, I'm sure, the money plays into it and whatnot, but what about the organization, or what about maybe, a mentor or, coaches telling you was the main, or a few main reasons why you decided to leave? Because obviously you could have came back and helped your draft stock, but what made you leave at that certain point in 2017?
A big part of it is the New York Yankees. With a name like that, who wouldn't want to play for them? But on the other hand, it was just like, what, I was ready to just kind of give it my best and say, what, let's try this thing. For me, it's not really about like coming back and improving draft stock and like maybe I'd have been a better prospect or anything like that. Coach Hop always told me, he said, listen, like, as long as they tell you to go out there and get outs, and you go out and get outs, someone's going to give you a jersey. And so to me, it was just like, hey, I've got an opportunity to do this thing, and let's go make the best of it.
In terms of the golf league and, rookie ball and, that first year in the minor leagues, having the success such early on, what made the transition easiest for you? Was it the pitching coaches, the coaches, the whole coaching staff, the teammates? Was it a combination of everything? Because a lot of guys you see have, a hard time adjusting to pro life and adjusting to pro ball. But it seems like you fairly, at least in terms of the stats, had a somewhat easy transition. Was it the same off the field as well?
Oh, yeah. So, the staff with the Yankees helped me out a lot, with pitching coaches and managers in general. But, I've made two of my best friends that I have now are with the Yankees, with Matt Sauer and Glenn Otto. And, when we first met down there in the GCL and everything, we hit it off right away. And, those two are like probably two of my closest friends I have today. And, that's helped out tremendously, obviously. And so, I've enjoyed that a lot.
For you, going through pro ball thus far, what's been one or two things that you've really been trying to work on, even now, not being on the field right now? Is it command? Is it more velocity, different pitch mix? What's kind of one or two things that you're really focusing on with the pitching coaches? Because obviously everybody needs to improve in every facet, but what's kind of the one or two things that, at least in yourself, can see you push to the next level come next year?
So the biggest things that I'm working on right now is a mix between a slider and a curveball. So I've had like a slider / curveball in my past, but now I'm trying to distinguish them into two different pitches. So I'm trying to have a slider that will be in the mid 80s range, and then kind of give like the deception away from my two seam and everything, and then have a curveball on top of that can also, throttle guys, like get them off the different speeds. So that way I've got, the fastball wherever it is, and then the slider in the mid 80s, and then I'll have a curveball on top of that that'll hopefully like even slow down slow down even more than that. And then also I'm working on a four seam that I can work up in the zone or inside the guys, so that it'll stay a little bit more straighter, and it might freeze guys that are used to my two seam. And so just kind of have that the mix to like keep guys honest and not just have guys sitting on my two seam and slider.
In terms of that, in terms of being a taller guy, pitching, and then also with your pitch deception, how much do you think that plays into your success? I mean, is that something that's always been at the forefront of your success? Is it just something where it was just normal for you to pitch that way, and people started noticing and saying, "Hey, maybe this is definitely a plus for you," or is it just comfortable for you pitching like that, and that just creates the extra deception for you?
Well, I mean, again, that all goes back to my college days with Coach Hopper. He pretty much refined me. I came in not really a sinker ball guy or really a two seam guy, but I just came in throwing a ball. And he pretty much took me and was just like, listen, you've got a little run on this thing. Let's refine your mechanics. Let's find how you throw the ball, and like let's get you to complete your pitches. And then it turns out like, hey, these things actually kind of have a little dive to them. So let's just play off that. And so he kind of refined that. And now it's just like that's just how I throw.
In terms of being a starter, being a reliever, not trying to make you go on the spot and pick one, but where do you see yourself, being just in terms of, I'm sure, if the Yankees called you up right now, you would pitch anywhere, anytime. But where do you see yourself not being most comfortable, but maybe it's the coaches projecting you or scouts or just you personally projecting yourself to where you think you'll end up at the end of it all?
I mean, shoot, wherever, like you kind of just said, wherever will help the team win a World Series, wherever they decide that it's best. But, I would like to be a starter. I enjoy the routine. I enjoy the, going out and trying to last 7, 8, 9 innings. So I enjoy that aspect of it. But, again, it's just whatever the team needs.
In terms of the injury and, everything that happened, once you found out about the injury, was it more of a freak accident just in terms of that? Because obviously going into pro ball, you're going to get a ton more innings in. Was it something where the innings ramped up and, going into next year, you're going to have a different routine? Like you mentioned, being a starter, having that routine, whether it's, physically, getting some physical therapy or doing bands. What's kind of one or two things that you might be tweaking in your kind of regimen, or maybe not tweaking it, and maybe it was just a freak accident that happens to the best of us?
Well, I don't know if there's anything that I could have done to change the injury from happening, but definitely now going through PT and everything, I've developed like an arm care routine, and I've developed a warm up routine and everything, and so I'm definitely going to carry that into next year and into whenever we're playing games and everything. But that's definitely something I want to continue moving forward, and I really enjoy that, and I really like the way my arm feels now, and so I'm gonna bring that forward.
For you, coming out of Tommy John or elbow surgery at least, a lot of guys either see an uptick in velocity, maybe having the pitch different and trying to get it ramped up. Is it something where you're seeing that kind of facet of your game where maybe the velocity's up a little bit? Has it something where you haven't been really looking too much into that? What's kind of your plan just in terms of, obviously you were a sinker ball guy, you mentioned the four seam. Is it something where you're seeing that uptick in velocity and you're going to use that to a strength come next spring?
I haven't seen any of velocity, really much anything. Like I said, I've barely gotten into live VPs or game like situations, so we haven't really had a chance to radar against like actual hitters and against a real mound and everything like that. So I haven't really seen anything when it comes to that. But I mean, obviously, if an increase in velocity happens, I'm not going to be upset about it. But no, I still want to pitch to my strengths, still want to have that sink and everything, and so I don't think anything major is changing. I'm just doing a little something to try and hopefully increase my pitching repertoire and increase the package that I have.
Now, in terms of back in March, were you down in Tampa training just in terms of getting your physical therapy, getting your routine in with the Yankees? Just because It seemed like just reading up about you, you had a quarantine in March down in Tampa.
Yeah, so I was with the team in spring training and everything, and then we had a teammate that got diagnosed. The health department down there had us quarantine in our hotels for 2 weeks, and then we got sent home.
In terms of that, what was the worst part about quarantining for that long? Just because talking to athletes, them being in hotels, traveling, they're just, it seems like they're so bored that when you ask them to come on like a podcast or something like that, they get so excited just because there's literally nothing else to do in the hotel but that, or I hear them playing video games. For you though, what did you have to do just in terms of, I mean, could you get any baseball activity in the hotel room, or were you literally just stuck there, just hoping to get out as soon as possible?
We were definitely pretty bored. My roommate was Aaron McGarrity, and we would joke and be like, "Hey, all right, so what do we do now? Do we twiddle our thumbs more, or do we just fall asleep?" And so, I mean, obviously, we played video games and everything. And Aaron joked with me this one time. We had a conference call just about an update or whatever, and the whole conference call, I was like, "Dude, I gotta get up. I gotta do something." And so I think we measured like 13 feet in between my bed and the couch that we had, like in the room, and I ran back and forth from in that 13 feet the entire time of the conference call. I think it lasted like 35 minutes, and Aaron was just like, "Dude, I think you were literally running the entire like 35 minutes," and I was like, "Dude, I was just that bored."
Awesome. But the Yankee organization, I wanted to touch on that a little bit just because you mentioned them in terms of, that was obviously one of the main reasons coming out of college early. What have you seen in the Yankee organization just far? I know you mentioned, meeting some of your best friends, but the organization as a whole, what's kind of the mindset of the organization, and can you see just that championship mentality from top to bottom throughout the whole organization?
No, you see it every day. I mean, it's literally in everything. In everything we do, it's either like, hey, we're not here to just go throughout the day. It's we're here to win. We're here to be like we're here to be like it's not a like just come in, do your stuff, and get out. It's a no, get in here and you compete, you win everything that you do, and it's a great thing to see. You never want to be a part of anything that's just like, hey, do your best. Oh shucks, we didn't come out great.
Yeah.
It's literally like, hey, we're coming in to beat everyone's butt every single time we play these guys, and so you love seeing that, and that mentality goes all the way from like obviously Cashman up at the top, or whether it be in our minor league side with Kevin Reese and Eric Schmidt, like those guys preach it all the way down to our organization. Even our clubbies have that mindset, and those guys are great too. And so, it's just something that's preached and practiced in our organization.
For you too, just in terms of being in the minors, there's definitely a part of it, at least hearing from other guys, where there's a development part of it and there's also the winning part. Because if you're not winning, everybody's miserable and then everybody stops developing. How do you balance the developing side of it and winning? Just in terms of, once you get to the major leagues, it's all about winning. But there has to be at least in my mind, you can correct me if I'm wrong, a little bit where you're just trying to develop also on a personal aspect. So how do you balance that? So you're trusting your teammates and being a part of a team, but also personally growing as a player.
I think so. My double A pitching coach Tim Norton, I think he said it best to us. He was like, "Listen, like your time to work and your time to develop is in between starts. So you do it, whether you're throwing your sides or whether you're getting flat ground work in, or whether you're watching video or whatever. You do that in between sides. Then once you step on the mound and it's game time, you compete and you play your butt off to win the game." Like you do all your development, you do all your work in between starts, but once you go and you do your start, you do whatever you got to do to win. And so that's where it kind of separates. It's like, hey, like yes, you got personal development stuff and you work on your craft every single day, and then it's like, all right, you get into game time, let's go out there and win. You use what you developed and everything, obviously, but it's like, hey, that's not the time to work on stuff. It's not time to work on stuff mid game. Once you're in the game, you do stuff you do with what you got and you win.
And in terms of the serious question aspect, I just wanted to ask you one final serious question. Before we get into the last part of just a couple personal questions, just opinion questions. But for you, going into next season and everything, but looking back to when you were, in high school, what's one or two things that you wish you knew back then that you know now, whether it's the game of baseball or anything from baseball to just, life generally? I mean, just looking at it, being a teen going into college, you didn't have to make that huge leap of just going straight into the pros, but, having to grow up pretty fast with having to balance baseball and school and, maybe in high school, getting away with, silly stuff, but now being, a true professional, what do you wish you knew back then that you know now?
I think honestly, it's just don't worry about like stuff you can't even control. Whether it be like now, like oh, am I gonna get moved up, moved down? Am I gonna miss a start? Like that kind of stuff. It's just like, dude, just live in the moment, enjoy each day, and it kind of goes back to like my like thought process on the memory of like don't take any day for granted. Like you are where you are, and enjoy the heck out of it, and make the best of what you got.
All right, so I just wanted to ask you a couple wrap up, just personal, questions, nothing serious. But for you, I wanted to ask just in terms of the batters you face within the Yankee system. Having somebody at least from my high school who's in the system as well, along with you, Charlie Ruger, who's a right-handed pitcher. But for you, I wanted to ask. He had to face, some guys down in Tampa once in a while. I believe, some of the big guys like Aaron Hicks, Giancarlo Stanton. I think maybe even Ellsbury back a few years ago. For you, have you had the opportunity to face some of those guys, and what was it like, going up against them with the intimidation factor, but also, knowing that you're on the same level at them as this point?
Actually, unfortunately, I haven't faced any of those guys. Yeah, I don't think I've ever actually faced anybody that's been on our big league roster, but I've been on the same team. Whether when it was Glaber rehabbing with us in Tampa or CC rehabbing with us in Tampa. I've been on those teams, and it's obviously such a huge like you're almost starstruck, but at the same time you're like, wow, like we're teammates. That's kind of like pretty dang cool. Like, hey, we're teammates. And then my first spring training. In captain's camp, we got to go to dinner with Aaron Judge, and it's like, I'm actually at dinner with this guy, and like Greg Bird was there, and Gary Sanchez was there, and it's like, oh wow, like I'm actually at dinner with these guys who are like, I mean, big freaking deals, and so it's a cool and humbling experience.
For you too, I wanted to ask, just in terms of being around Trenton, not too close to Trenton, but seeing, like you mentioned, those certain guys rehabbing. Whether it's, when Derek Jeter was rehabbing, Alex Rodriguez, the fans and, everyone just kind of comes together at the ballpark. How much of a difference is it for you? Minor leagues, obviously, you're not going to get the big crowds every day in and out, but rehabbing, with some of the big league guys, how much does the culture change from when they're there to when they're not there, either within the system or around the system?
I mean, in the day-to-day locker room, nothing really changes because it's still, hey, let's win this game, let's go out and compete, and we're gonna beat this team. So that mindset doesn't really change, but it's, I mean, the culture of like you definitely see a lot more fans. You definitely see a lot more fans trying to get their attention and stuff like that. So I mean, that's obviously really cool to play in front of bigger crowds and play in front of more fans and everything. You live for that. That's why. It's a majority of why we do what we do. So it's a lot of fun to have them around.
In terms of where you project yourself next year, I'm sure, it's obviously a long way away, but is there a place that you would at least want to start, whether it's high A, getting that confidence back, and then going to double A, starting at double A? Obviously, you don't have the final say on it, but where do you think you should, or not should, but where would you be comfortable at least ending up just in terms of starting, coming off post-injury?
Honestly, I'll be comfortable anywhere. Kind of like what I said earlier is, I don't care if I'm in the GCL. Like, I'm not taking a day for granted again. So, whether they put me in extended spring training or whether they start me in AAA or the big leagues, like, I'm going to enjoy every single second of it. And, Like my pitching coach said, when they tell me to go out there and get outs, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go out there and get outs until they tell me not to. And so again, whether that's at the GCL level, or AAA or big leagues like that, I'm gonna try to keep that exact same mindset.
For you, I know you mentioned coming up with the new slider, curveball pitches. Just reading up about you, it seems like you're pretty comfortable with the sinker, fastball. How comfortable are you yet with the slider and curveball? Is it still a work in progress, and you're hoping to have it done by February, or are you feeling pretty comfortable with the mixture?
I feel really comfortable with my curveball. Obviously, like slider's definitely, still working on it, but it's definitely a playable pitch right now. But obviously, you want to improve every single day on each of your pitches. So there's definitely always room for improvement, but I'm definitely comfortable with the pitch package that I have.
Now, I wouldn't usually ask who I'm talking to who's one or two guys within the system that really they've become close to and leaned on. But for you, I wanted to ask, besides that, since you already mentioned the two guys that you're close with, who's one or two players that you've pitched against, whether it's college, even high school, I'm not sure the product around you, but Cape Cod League or minors, some one or two guys that, were the toughest at-bats that people might know out there?
Oh my gosh! I mean, whenever anyone asks me like who the hardest guy you've ever tried to get out is, my answer is always Kevin Biggio. I have yet to get that guy out. I don't know whether he knows exactly what I'm throwing. I don't know if he knows, like, if he's just got my number, but I have yet to get that guy out. And it's like, I feel like I'm throwing really good against him, but he just has my number. And so, I just got to kind of like, hey, congratulations, dude. You are one heck of a player, and he's always had my number.
Yeah. I got a little beef with him, too, just in terms of having somebody formerly on the podcast, one of his best friends, trying to get him on the podcast. He was always someone, tough. He would, give you a little, hope and then just rip it away from you. So I know that feeling from Kevin. But other than that, where has been the coolest place you've played at professionally or even in college? I'm not sure exactly the fields that you played at in college. That'll take, hours to just research all of them. But where's kind of one or two that, just really resonated with you? I mean, it could be the home ballpark, in Trenton, just because, it's the Yankees. I mean, you can't really beat them. But where's kind of somewhere that you always enjoy going to for the scenery, just you pitch there well, just really anything?
If we're doing scenery, I like New Hampshire a lot just because that's up in the mountains, and I really like that. If we're going ballpark, the new Hartford Stadium's like immaculate. They did a really good job there. I like Trenton just because, I mean, that, like you said, it's home field and everything, and then probably like the most feel good with like scenery and good ballpark and like just the fans and everything. I gotta say Charleston, where we are in Low A. I mean, it's a lot of fun to play there, and they got great fans, and it's just that's a fun park to play at.
Who are one to two guys, coming to the end of the podcast, but one to two guys that you've asked, for advice from, or kind of, tried to pick their brain, whether it was, one or two guys on a rehab assignment, or maybe just, a pitching coach, or, really anybody that you tried to pick their brain from, how to get rent a home, or, how to, get a certain pitch, get somebody out on a certain pitch.
So I talked a lot this spring training with J-Hap, and then I actually worked out pretty much every single day with Adam Warren. And so those two guys have been huge mentors to me. Jay was really nice and let me go to all his sides he would throw, and he would talk to me like while we were in the training room together, and so he was a huge mentor, and same thing while we were in the weight room. And then Adam was just, I mean, same thing right there. I mean, we worked out, we were lifting weights together, and he's a great mentor off the field as well, and he helped a lot with when it comes to mental aspect and like what to think and what's going on with situations and stuff like that. And so I'd say those two guys have really, really helped me, especially this year.
In terms of just, talking about, the Yankee organization and everything, being somebody, from, a smaller university, but, now being on everybody's radar just in terms of the success you've had thus far, how have you dealt with, not the spotlight, obviously, but how have you dealt with, all the success that's come your way thus far in terms of, being a known commodity now within the Yankee organization?
I mean, I still have the same mindset as I did beforehand. Is, you know what, like, I'm out there to get outs, and that's kind of just the way I feel about it. I'm still just a guy from Georgia. I'm a goat farmer, and so I'm a goat farmer that goes out and pitches, and so that's kind of my mindset. And I just love being around the guys. I love the game, and I just love the organization.
For you, second to last question I wanted to ask, just in terms of, your pitching and everything, but off the field, still being a Yankee, still always, being the same guy that you are on the mound, has there been, any crazy fan moments, just even in the minor leagues? Somebody recognizes you, maybe at the ballpark or, out to dinner, or maybe nobody does. I mean, just everybody has their own little, story just in terms of, maybe they do get recognized or maybe they don't. Is there something that, maybe someone always notices you maybe in your hometown or, up in Trenton in terms of the fan wise?
Well, down here in the southeast, like I'm in Birmingham now, so in Birmingham and then back home in Georgia, not really a lot of minor league fans, much less Yankees fans. It's very much SEC football down here. Yeah. So I've never gotten recognized at all down here, which I'm perfectly fine with. One story was me and my wife were up in Philadelphia on an off day, and there's a cheesesteak place I think it's called the Reading Market in downtown Philly. Okay. Is that right?
I'm not sure. I have no clue, honestly.
Okay, well, I think that's called the Reading Market. Anyway, it's like a farmer's market inside of Philadelphia, and there's a cheesesteak place in there, and we were waiting in line and everything, and the guy that was making the cheesesteaks and everything asked us, like, oh, like, where are you guys from and everything, and both of us said Georgia, and he's like, oh, wow, like, what are you guys doing up here in Philadelphia? And I was like, oh, well, I work in Trenton right now and everything. He's like, oh, like, what do you do there? I was like, well, I actually play for the Trenton Thunder, and he was just like, oh, my gosh, like, I'm a huge Yankees fan. Like, that's so cool. And, like, he asked if he could take his picture with me and everything. And, like, obviously me and my wife are laughing. And, so took the picture with the guy making our cheesesteaks. And he was like, you care if I put it on the wall? I was like, nah, like, that's so cool. Like, of course. And so whatever cheesesteak, I feel bad that I don't remember the exact name of the place that it is in Philadelphia. But wherever it is, maybe my picture's still up there. So that was a fun time.
Awesome. Final question for you. You mentioned, working in Trenton. Being from, down south, how miserable is it on a scale of 1 to 10 living in New Jersey part of the year?
It's the only thing was the cold at the beginning. Yeah. I was not used to that kind of weather.
I mean, it's always for sure. Here, so that's why.
What did you say?
It's always freezing here, so it's miserable now, but I was just
so that was a big difference between Georgia and Alabama. Living down here and being used to the warmth and everything was going up there, and I mean we needed a daggum Arctic jacket the first couple of weeks of the season, so that was definitely a big adjustment. But other than that, the people up there were very nice to me and everything, so no complaints at all.
Awesome. Well, Garrett, I just wanted to thank you for coming on, taking a long time just to talk to us about, baseball and, everything in between. It was great talking to you. Hopefully, next season, we wish you all the best just in terms of the success coming off of post-injury. And, hopefully, hope to see you in the pinstripes in Bronx one day. But maybe I'll come down and catch a Trenton game next year if the fans are allowed back in by that point.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me on the podcast, Kyle. It's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thanks, Garrett. Hope to stay in touch and, just wish you all the best. And, when it's published in, a couple of weeks, I'll definitely tag you and let you know.
Sounds great. Thank you again, Kyle.
All right. Thank you, Garrett.
All right, bye.
Yeah, so that was Garrett Whitlock, pitcher in the Yankees farm system, top 30 prospect in the Yankee farm system just in terms of the rankings and everything. So definitely something to look forward to with Garrett. Thank you everybody for listening. I know this has been a long one just in terms of the length. But everybody just out there listening thus far, thank you for everybody and all the support. Wish you all the best, and we're going to have more coming out next Sunday. Every Sunday we're going to be posting one now from now until we wrap up the season, so just be on the lookout for that. And just thanks for listening and supporting us. Have a good one. And remember, Undisturbed. Follow us on social media and do everything you want. Tell your friends, tell everybody about it.